It was just another typical Monday, or so I thought. The kind where everything is running behind, and the clock seems to be mocking you. My ride to the client site bailed at the last minute, some family emergency. I was scrambling for an Uber when my phone buzzed. It was her. "You need a lift?" That was it. Just 4 words. I almost didn't believe it. My boss, Elena, wasn't the kind of person to offer rides, make small talk, or honestly, even acknowledge people outside the boardroom unless she had to. She was driven, sharp, always polished, and walked like she owned every room she entered. I never really had a conversation with her that lasted more than 5 minutes. But there she was, in a black Audi, waving me over like we were old friends. "Get in, we'll be late," she said, sunglasses on, one hand on the wheel like she'd been waiting. I climbed in, still confused but grateful. "Your car broke down?" she asked as we pulled into traffic. "No, my buddy bailed on me. Said his kid was sick." She gave a half nod. Figures. People always flake when it matters. I laughed nervously. "Thanks for saving me." "Don't thank me yet." "I hate traffic," she said, already irritated by the red lights stacking up ahead. The silence that followed should have been awkward. It wasn't. She adjusted the radio low-volume jazz, then started talking about the new client we were meeting. But halfway through, the road came to a dead stop. We checked our phones. Accident ahead. Gridlock for miles. "Perfect," she muttered. "This'll be a while." She leaned back, kicked off her heels, and sighed. It was the first time I saw her look human. "So," she said, eyes still on the mess ahead, "married life treating you well?" The question caught me off guard. I hesitated. "Yeah, I guess. You know how it is." "I actually don't," she said, eyes flicking toward me. "Divorced 3 years. Never quite got the hang of the happily ever after thing." Something shifted. The polite boss-employee barrier blurred a bit. I glanced over. Her makeup was flawless, but her eyes looked tired. Not from lack of sleep, more like from holding too much in. I nodded. "It's not all picture perfect. We've had our rough patches." She gave a small, knowing smile. "Everyone does. Some just pretend better than others." That line hit harder than I expected. My wife and I hadn't connected in months. Just routines. Chores. Scheduling who picks up the kids. I hadn't thought about that in a while. Not consciously, but hearing Elena say it out loud brought everything to the surface. The car didn't move an inch. She turned down the radio completely. "You ever think about walking away from it all?" "What life?" I joked, then paused. "Sometimes. Not seriously, but yeah." She looked at me for a second longer than necessary. "You'd be surprised how many do." Quietly. They just never admit it. I wasn't sure what to say. The conversation had taken a sharp turn into the personal, but it didn't feel forced. If anything, it felt overdue. Like we were both just waiting for someone to ask the real questions. "You strike me as someone who settled early," she said casually. "Am I wrong?" I let out a dry laugh. "Ouch." "No, you're not wrong. Got married at 28. 2 kids by 32. Comfortable life. Predictable." She shrugged. "Predictable is safe. But it's boring. Most men don't admit they're bored." I didn't respond. Because she was right. I was bored. And it scared me to say it out loud. She shifted in her seat, facing me more now. "I used to think marriage was about being chosen. Like, once someone picks you, you're locked in. End of story. But no one tells you how fast people change. Or how fast love dies when no one's feeding it." Her words landed like she'd rehearsed them, but there was raw truth behind them. I wondered who had let her down. Who had stopped choosing her. "You think love dies?" I asked. "I think it fades. Slowly. Like paint on a wall you stop noticing." That image stuck with me. The car finally moved a few feet, then stopped again. We both laughed bitterly. "Elena," I said, her name sounding strange on my tongue, "you ever regret your divorce?" "Not for a second," she said, voice steady. "I regret waiting so long to admit I wasn't happy. That's all." I stared out the window, heart pounding a little harder than it should have. This wasn't just a chat anymore. There was something underneath it, a current pulling us somewhere we both pretended not to see. She took off her sunglasses, finally looking at me fully. Her eyes were a deep brown, unreadable. You ever think about what your life would be like if you'd waited? Every day lately, I admitted. Something unspoken passed between us. We sat in silence for a minute, but it wasn't empty. It was loud, full of all the things we weren't saying. The what-ifs, the should-haves, the not-yets. She smiled, but it wasn't playful. It was sad. Funny. I never thought you'd be the kind of guy to feel trapped. And I never thought you'd be the kind of boss who offers rides. I shot back. She laughed, really laughed, and the sound was softer than I expected. Maybe we're both surprising ourselves, she said. Traffic crept forward. We followed. 10 minutes passed. More small talk. The tension ebbed, but didn't vanish. I noticed the way her blouse clung just slightly in the heat. The way she pushed her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. The gold band she no longer wore. I looked away. I wasn't supposed to be noticing any of that. She leaned back again, foot resting on the dashboard now. You know, you're not as uptight as I thought. Thanks, I think. She smirked. You just always looked so put together. Like you had it all figured out. That's the costume, I said. Comes off at home. She studied me. And what's under it? I hesitated. Then, someone who misses being seen. That changed her expression. Just a flicker. But it was enough. I see you, she said softly. Not flirting. Not joking. Just honest. I swallowed. There was no denying it anymore. We'd crossed into dangerous territory. And yet I didn't want to get out. The road started to clear. The city skyline emerged in the distance. Reality getting closer. She turned the music back on. Jazz again. Light, easy, like nothing had happened. But something had. We didn't say much for the rest of the drive. Just glances. A few smiles. A longer than necessary pause before she dropped me off. Thanks again, I said, hand on the door. Anytime, she replied. Maybe next time traffic won't be so bad. I nodded, stepped out, and the door shut behind me with a quiet finality. But the weight of that ride lingered. I'd gone in expecting the boring car trip. I came out feeling seen for the first time in years. I didn't expect to think about her that much after the ride. I told myself it was just a weird moment, an outlier. A fluke. But that night, lying in a hotel bed after the conference check-in, I couldn't stop replaying everything. My wife had called while I was settling in. I answered, pretending everything was fine, but the conversation was quick. She asked about the kids' homework, reminded me to pick up laundry when I got back, and ended with a distracted, "Okay, love you." I said it back, out of habit, then stared at the ceiling, phone still in hand. A message popped up. Elena, dinner downstairs? You probably don't want to order room service alone. I stared at the screen longer than I needed to. I told myself it was just food, that we were co-workers, that it would be weird to say no after everything earlier. I replied, sure. Be down in 10. She was already at a table by the time I got there, scrolling through her phone, hair down now, makeup lighter, looking nothing like the version of her I knew from the office. She looked up and smiled, not polite, not professional, but like she was genuinely glad I came. No tie tonight? She teased. I sat down. Didn't think I'd need it. The waiter came, and we ordered wine before even looking at the menu. You like red, right? She asked. You remember that? I remember a lot of things. The wine came quickly. We clinked glasses. Her eyes lingered on mine longer than they should have. No one said it, but we both knew this wasn't about food. We talked about the pitch, about how strong we were as a team. She made a joke about how she underestimated me. I told her I used to think she hated everyone equally. She laughed again, that real kind of laugh, and told me most people never got close enough to find out otherwise. Dinner was slow. Comfortable. Too comfortable. The conversation drifted. You ever think about quitting? She asked. Quitting the company. Quitting everything. Just disappearing. I hesitated. More often than I should. She sipped her wine. You strike me as the kind who'd just burn it all down one day. People like you get good at hiding it, but the fire's there. I didn't know whether to thank her or worry. And what kind am I? She tilted her head, trapped, restless, waiting for permission to make a mess. Her words stuck, because she was right. She saw it, and suddenly I didn't feel like hiding it anymore. She leaned forward. Tell me the truth. Are you happy? I didn't answer right away.
No.
Not really. That's brave. No, it's pathetic. Because I haven't done anything about it. We were quiet for a moment. Then she asked, when was the last time someone made you feel wanted?
I didn't lie.
I don't remember. She nodded slowly. That's how it starts. Not with cheating. With forgetting how it feels to be wanted. I felt the blood rushing in my ears. She poured us more wine. I used to think I was the problem, she said. That I was too much. Too intense. Too driven. But maybe I was just with the wrong person. Someone who didn't know what to do with someone like me. And now I know better. I know what I want. I just don't always go for it. We locked eyes. The moment was right there, hanging between us, waiting to be acknowledged. She stood up. You want another drink? She asked. I nodded. She didn't wait for me to answer. Just turned and walked toward the elevator. I followed. We didn't talk in the hallway. Just the sound of her heels and my heartbeat, both loud in the silence. She unlocked her room and stepped aside to let me in. I walked past her without thinking. She poured more wine. I didn't touch mine. She sat on the couch, pulled her legs up under her, looked comfortable, too comfortable. This isn't a test, she said softly. I'm not trying to trap you. I know. Then why are you sitting all the way over there? I didn't answer. She watched me, waiting. I'm married, I said finally. I know, she whispered. Another silence. Then she asked, would you still be here if you were happy? I closed my eyes. Probably not. She didn't move. Just let the weight of that answer settle. I stood up. She didn't react. I walked to the door, hand on the handle. She said, you're allowed to want more. It doesn't make you a bad person. I didn't turn around. I should go. I won't stop you. I opened the door. I'm not chasing you either, she added. I don't do that anymore. I stood there, stuck between the hallway and her room, for too long. Then walked out. Back in my room, everything felt wrong. Too quiet. Too clean. I sat on the edge of the bed, clothes still on, staring at the floor. I thought about my wife. Not her face, but the distance between us lately. The silent dinners. The transactional sex. The way we both just coasted through everything. No fights. No intimacy. Just function. I picked up my phone. Thanks for dinner, I typed. She replied instantly. Wish you'd stayed. I stared at those 3 words until my vision blurred.
I didn't sleep.
The next morning, I avoided her. We were back in work mode, surrounded by people. Suits, name tags, coffee cups. She acted like nothing happened. I followed her lead. But under the surface, something had cracked. After the final session, we walked out together. Alone again, briefly, waiting for our driver. She glanced at me. Still stuck. Worse now, I admitted. She smiled faintly. Good. Why? Because stuck means you care. Numb means you're gone. I didn't know what to say. You know this doesn't have to mean anything, she added. Or it could mean everything. That part's on you. I nodded, unsure of which was worse. The car pulled up. She opened the door, paused. You coming? I got in. We didn't speak the entire ride back. But her hand rested just barely close enough to touch mine. She didn't move it. And neither did I. Back at the office, everything looked the same. Emails, meetings, passive nods from coworkers. The same stale coffee. The same buzz of fluorescent lights. But inside, nothing felt familiar. It was like walking through a life that no longer fit. Elena and I didn't speak much the first 2 days after the trip. She passed me in the hallway, offered a glance, sometimes a tight smile. No words, but the silence carried everything we'd left unsaid. Every look, every almost moment, it hung between us like static. I caught myself checking her schedule, hovering by her office door for reasons that didn't make sense. She never called me in. But then Thursday morning she messaged, "Close the door when you come in." I didn't ask why. Just walked in and shut it. She didn't look up from her laptop. "How's your week?" "Unreal." "Same." She kept typing, then stopped. "You think about it?" she asked, still not looking at me. "Every day." Now she looked up. "Me too." That was all it took. The door was closed. The room was silent. She stood slowly, walked around the desk, and leaned against it, arms crossed. "We can pretend nothing happened. Keep working. Keep smiling. Or what? Or we stop pretending." I stepped forward, almost without realizing. "Last chance," she said, voice low. "I'm done lying to myself." When I kissed her, it didn't feel like cheating. It felt overdue. Like the answer to a question I hadn't let myself ask. It wasn't messy or rushed. It was quiet, deliberate. Like we both knew we'd cross this line eventually, and now that we had, there was no turning back. Later, back at my desk, I stared at the screen but couldn't see the words. My hands still shook. My chest felt tight. Not from guilt, at least not yet, but from the sheer weight of what it meant. I'd broken something. Maybe beyond repair. That night, my wife asked what I wanted for dinner. I said I wasn't hungry. She didn't push. She just nodded and turned back to her phone. I watched her from across the room. She looked tired, worn out by years of routines, small arguments, silent compromises. I wondered if she noticed the way we'd stopped looking at each other. If she knew we'd already started drifting long before Elena showed up. I slept on the edge of the bed, wide awake. The next morning, I got into the office early. Elena was already there. She didn't say anything when I walked in, just looked up and gave the smallest nod. That was all. Later, she called me in again. No meeting on the calendar. No agenda. She locked the door. It didn't feel like an affair. Not in the way people describe it, shameful, reckless, impulsive. It felt intentional, grounded, like two people quietly deciding they couldn't go on pretending. We didn't talk much after. Just lay there, side by side on the office couch, clothes half on, phones ignored. She broke the silence. "We should stop." "I know, but we won't." "No." Another silence. She turned toward me. "Does she know you're gone?" "Not yet, but she will." "You sure about that?" "I can't keep being two people." She studied me. "I've heard that before." I looked at her. Not from me. There was no fight, no drama. Just an understanding. This wasn't a fling. It wasn't boredom. It was something that had grown slowly, then all at once. We kept seeing each other. Quietly. Carefully. Always with eyes over our shoulders. Texts at odd hours. Brief moments stolen in parking lots, rented conference rooms, hotel lounges. It should have felt dirty. It never did. I started going home later, making excuses, telling myself I was giving space, but really I was withdrawing, emotionally detaching, piece by piece. She didn't ask questions. Maybe she already knew. Maybe she'd stopped caring long before I did. One night, Elena said, "You're falling." I already fell. And her? I don't think I was ever really in love. Not like this. She didn't smile. That makes it worse. I know. We started talking about what came next, what it would mean if we stopped hiding, if I left, if this wasn't just an escape, but the real thing, the terrifying thing. "What do you want?" she asked one night, curled beside me. "You. That's not enough. I want a life where I don't feel invisible." She nodded. "That's a start." I told her things I hadn't said out loud in years. How I used to dream bigger. How I wanted more than bills and dinner plans and small talk at family barbecues. How I forgot what it felt like to be touched like I mattered. She listened. Not with sympathy, but recognition. Like she'd lived the same version of it, just from the other side. "You can't fix your marriage," she said softly. "Not with her. Not anymore." "I don't want to fix it." "Then you have to end it." I didn't answer. You're dragging her through this, she continued. She deserves honesty, even if it breaks her. The truth was, I agreed. But I didn't know how to begin. The next day, I wrote the first draft of a conversation in my head. Rehearsed it. Revised it. Chickened out. At dinner, I opened my mouth to speak, then closed it again. She was talking about a school project our youngest had forgotten. She smiled, and it looked genuine. I hated myself for what I was about to destroy. But I also hated the lie we were both living. Later that night, I went to the couch instead of our bed. She came out of the room confused. Is something wrong? She asked. I looked up, heart pounding. I think we need to talk. She sat down slowly, confusion tightening her brow. I felt it all at once. The weight of years, the shared holidays, hospital visits, school meetings, anniversaries we barely celebrated. This wasn't just one conversation. It was the undoing of a life. I've been lying, I said quietly.
To you.
To myself. Her eyes didn't flinch. She just waited, guarded. I didn't plan this, I added. But it happened. What happened? There it was. The line. I met someone. At work. It's been going on a while. No sound. Just the silence between us expanding like a hole in the floor. She blinked. Swallowed. How long? Since the trip. A couple months. She looked past me, processing. You cheated on me. Yes. Her voice was flat. Is it still happening? I nodded. Yes. She leaned back. Still no tears. Just something in her face unraveling slowly. Why are you telling me now? Because I'm not coming back from this. I'm not who I was. I can't pretend anymore. She nodded. It was slow, mechanical. Do you love her? That hit deeper than the rest. Yes. She looked down. One hand clenched into a fist, the other motionless. Do you hate me?
I asked. No, she said.
But I probably will later. I wanted to say I was sorry. But sorry didn't mean anything here. Sorry was something you said for forgetting to pick up milk. She stood, walked to the kitchen, opened a cabinet, closed it again, trying to find something to do with her hands, anything to distract from the collapse. Was it me? She asked finally.
No.
You didn't do anything wrong. Then why her? Because she made me feel alive. Like someone saw me again. She laughed bitterly. So, I didn't see you? No, that's not. She cut in. I gave you everything. Years of my life. I carried your kids. I waited through your long nights. I dealt with your moods, your distance. And now you want a thank you gift for feeling seen? I didn't speak. I couldn't. I should scream, she said. Throw something. But I'm too tired. She walked past me, not looking. You need to leave tonight. I packed quietly. She didn't follow me into the bedroom. I didn't expect her to. The house felt like a museum of a life already over. As I closed the door behind me, I heard her cry. But I didn't go back. I checked into a hotel. Elena met me there the next morning. She didn't ask questions. Just sat beside me, held my hand, and waited. I told her. I said. I figured. She told me to leave. She nodded. How do you feel? Empty. You're allowed to. I didn't expect it to hurt this much. It's not just about her, she said. It's grief. Even when you know it's right, endings still break you. I looked at her. You're not a consolation prize. I know that. I'm not running to you, because I need a soft place to land. She met my eyes. Then come, because you want to build something real. I did. That was the thing, I genuinely did. We kept it quiet for a few more weeks. Out of respect. Out of necessity. The divorce process started. My wife and I agreed to keep it civil for the kids. I offered full transparency. She asked me not to involve Elena publicly until it was final. I agreed. There were awkward pickups. Mutual friends who noticed. Whispers. But I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living a life I chose. One night, Elena said, "You're still carrying guilt." I think I always will. You think that makes you honorable?
No.
Just human.
She leaned in.
Don't make me compete with your guilt. If you're here, be here. That stayed with me. Being with her wasn't easy. She didn't tolerate half-truths. She called me out when I tried to compartmentalize. But she also saw every version of me, flawed, anxious, selfish, and stayed.
My kids took time.
They asked questions I didn't always have the answer to. I didn't badmouth their mother. I told them I loved them, no matter what changed. Eventually, they adjusted.
Slowly.
Hesitantly. But they saw I wasn't disappearing. Months passed. Elena and I moved in together. Quietly. No announcements, no big reveal. Just the next right step. One night, she sat beside me on the couch and said, "Do you regret it?" I shook my head. Not a second. She smiled. Even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts. She looked down at her hand in mine. I used to think love was supposed to feel safe. But maybe it's just supposed to feel honest. I nodded. This is the most honest I've ever been. You think people will judge us forever? Probably. You care?
No.
We both exhaled at the same time. That shared breath said more than any apology ever could. This wasn't a fairy tale. We still fought. Still disagreed. But the difference was we showed up. Fully. No autopilot. No pretending. Sometimes I thought about what would have happened if we never got stuck in that traffic jam. If the conversation had stayed surface level. If we'd buried it all under professionalism and silence. But we didn't. We let the spark become fire. Burned down the old life. And built something new from the ash. I didn't cheat because I was broken. I cheated because I was suffocating in a life I didn't recognize anymore. Elena didn't save me. But she made me see I was still worth saving. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally breathing again.